Welcome into the Pats Nation. I'm Corso. Catone is here. Joe's with us in the booth, and you are watching us on YouTube. Hey, when you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Hit that thumbs up. Get all our notifications, and of course, you're listening on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, 790 The Score. Make sure you email us in mailbag corso.catone@gmail.com, or give us a call in heated hotline 855-313-PATS PATS. TS. Leave a message 24/7. Have a take. Give us your thoughts. We want to know all about them. Our thoughts are great, but we want to hear from you. So make sure. Today, got a good one. I'm going to go in Coach's Corner. Josh McDaniels is here. I see the title, Joe. Finally, some real coaches. And that is absolutely for sure. So Josh McDaniels is back in town. Terrell Williams, DC. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to go into the quarterback room, a QB breakdown, talk about the relationship that they may have, May and Daniels, and hear from one of you in heated hotline. Stick around for that. And we'll go into Sunday spread, talk about the NFL championship games this weekend, today, actually, and tell you who we like. Gentlemen.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Listen, you forgot to tell our viewers about your newest toy. You're obsessed now with creating these shorts on YouTube, right? They're going to tune into those, Chris.
Joe's doing a great job with it. We have short on YouTube now. We have all the shorts up there for you to watch. 15, 20 second, 30 second, 60 second little hits from the show that you can check out and take a look at. It seems to be popular. You have thousands of people looking at those things. So take a look. Let us know what you think.
Making a fool of yourself.
Yeah, it's just me. Yeah. So make sure you tune into that. But guys, have your Bloody Marys and with mimosas and crap? You ready to go this morning or what?
No, you know what? I didn't have anything this morning. I'm waiting till this afternoon because I'm going to go right to the bourbon in preparation for this Chiefs game.
Because if Buffalo doesn't win this game,
I
swear to God, I don't know what's going to happen. You may not see me on the show a couple of weeks. I'm going to go into like seclusion.
Yeah.
Up in a mountain somewhere. But before we get to those games, we have to talk about the new coach in town. We're going to do it in Coach's Corner, and we're going to do it now.
Coach's Corner.
I can't get
So we're going to get rid of those coaches that he puts up on the watch for those you watching on YouTube.
We haven't filled them all out yet, so you know.
Okay, Joe, you're on the clock now. You got to get those guys out of here now. McDaniels, Williams, Vrabel. Okay, Josh McDaniels is back again.
Yep.
He's back again. He's back. So I mean, this is the third stint now, right? With the Patriots and back as the offensive coordinator. So what do you think?
I like the hire. I know it's been bellied about this week. Was he the right guy? You're going back in time and you need a fresh new look. But listen, I think when you look around what was available for OCs, you could have went and gotten a young guy or for the Detroit staff or the Rams staff, but those guys never called plays. They weren't play callers. Mays, young, in a critical stage of his career for development. And I don't think there was anybody else out there that is more qualified than I think McDaniels to get him where he needs to go. Now, we can talk later about whether or not the offensive schemes he's going to put in place are what we want to see. But I think he's an experienced play caller, Chris, who knows how to develop quarterbacks. I'm okay with the hire, and I like it. I like the hire.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, although you and I, yesterday, gave me a lot of crap on Corso and Catone, Joe. I mean, you let me have it pretty good. And it's because I was staying true to some of my thoughts up front, which were, I'd like to see a Rams guy. I want to see a Detroit guy. I want to see a new polished offense that's 2025. You know what I mean? And I don't know if McDaniels can bring that. And they're like this, well, he can adjust and he can start doing that. Well, then if he's going to adjust and do that, then why don't we get the guys that actually are in that system, versus, morphing his into that and so on. I do agree with you and everything you said about progression of May and, stability with him and the experience. Look, Josh McDaniels has had a top 10 offense for as long as he was an OC.
And Chris,
except
he's
for
not
1
going
year.
anywhere. And Chris, he's not going anywhere. No one's hiring him next year to be a head coach.
That's right. That was going to be the next point. And that's a great point, is if you want stability for Drake May, Josh McDaniels, I think he's done being a head coach. I don't think he's going to do it again unless it's later on. I mean, he's there for 4 years, I think. And he hasn't left New England. Got a little, from my understanding, he got a little homesick in Vegas, when things weren't going right, and have his family there. But let's not forget, these are humans. These are human beings with things that happen in their life that, you say he likes New England. He wants to be in New England.
He still lived in this area, correct?
Yes.
Chris?
Yeah, he did. So, no, I like the hire. I just want him to adjust to the NFL today, what the NFL is. And I think he can.
And that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
The only thing I will say is, and a lot of people talk, are people making too much about this idea of, was it Kraft that decided this, or was it Vrabel? Is it too much being made of that?
I think it is, Chris, because listen, Vrabel wouldn't have taken this job if they said to him, because everyone's saying, well, this was a done deal back in October. Well, listen, if you think Mike Vrabel took this job and he was told, you have to hire Josh McDaniels as your OC, he wouldn't have taken the job, Chris. He could have went anywhere he wanted. He was at the top of everybody's list. Did maybe Kraft say, we'd love to see Josh come back? Maybe. But I think Mike Vrabel probably said, well, I'll give him an interview, but if I don't think he's the right guy, I'm not hiring him. And I think the Krafts were probably like, okay, that's fair. If you don't think he's the right guy, don't hire him. I think this was his decision. I think he decided after whatever Josh told him and sold him, I think he was comfortable saying, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go with you. So I think it was his hire at the end of the day. And I know you got a question you're going to ask me because you asked me yesterday on CORSO CATONE this question.
Which one?
About if he was the head coach of the Chicago Bears, would he be
answer it.
Well, you answer it this time. What do you think?
No.
You asked me yesterday. I'm asking you today.
No.
You don't think he would?
No. If Vrabel got a job somewhere else, his first choice is going to be Josh McDaniel. I don't believe that.
You don't believe that? Okay.
No, I don't, because I do think that some of this was forced on him. I do. I think that the Krafts, maybe not forced, but I think the Krafts told him, hey, we're real comfortable with McDaniels if it's somebody that you would want to work with. And one of the comments that you saw in written, supposedly that Vrabel said was, yeah, I feel like he can work well with my staff, like they're two separate things. It's Josh McDaniels and him on equal footing. That smells a lot like Mayo and Van Pelt. Like I only care about it as it relates to how's the flow of this team going to go? What's the pecking order? Now, Josh McDaniels is not the kind of guy that's going to try to step on Vrabel's toes, and I don't think Vrabel will allow him to anyway. No. But I do think they'll work fine together. They do have a relationship. They were here. There was an overlap.
Yeah, I was just going to say
here for a long time with him. People don't remember how early on McDaniels was part of this team.
He wasn't the OC, but he was coaching. Yeah. Right.
And so, again, I like it. He's had top 10 offenses his whole time, except for the Cam Newton year, where they were like 27th or some crazy.
Well, that was that was just crazy.
But I'll tell you what, that may have been one of his best jobs as far as dealing with a quarterback, because Cam Newton was cooked. He couldn't even throw the ball.
No.
So no, I like that he's here. I think he's going to be here for a long time. I think Drake May, and we're going in the next segment, we'll talk about his relationship with May and how that's going to go. But I want to talk about the system, because I don't know what he's going to do here, but I know what he did. And that system, and we'll talk about how difficult it is on the quarterback in the next segment, but for the other players, it's a real tough system to learn. You hear Edelman talk about this all the time.
Well, Chris, it kills receivers. It's like wide receiver graveyard here because of what you expect the receiver to be able to read and understand and make a decision off the line. We don't have one receiver right now that can probably do that, so that's a problem if that's what he's bringing here.
Yeah, I mean, you've had guys, Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco. You've had him come through. You had Reggie Wayne at the end of his career come through a training camp.
They decided they didn't want to deal with it,
and they couldn't pick it up.
No.
You know, they
didn't want to put the effort in to pick it
Right.
up at that stage of their career. They're like, you know, we're not studying to do this. This is crazy. Reggie Wayne basically said, at this stage in my career, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously
You know what I mean?
he could do it if he wanted to do it, and he played
Yeah.
with Manning. But so it's complicated. There's a lot to it, and you hear Edelman talk about what happens when you come to a line. I mean, come to the line. You're talking about concepts. It's a conceptual sort of thing, this type of offense, where you have to, as a player, conceptualize what you're doing compared to what the defense you just learned about this week. You have to have an understanding conceptually of what the offense, what we're trying to do offensively versus assignment football. I mean, offense is typically assignment-based football. You have an assignment, you have a route, you have a concept, maybe it's a combination, a read, but that's your assignment. This is more conceptual, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it also, Chris, forces the quarterback and the receiver to kind of see the same thing because if the receiver sees something in the defense and may see something and expects the receiver to do something because it's conceptualized, and then Brady used to go crazy because the receiver didn't see what he saw.
Right.
But can you even give that level of responsibility at this stage of his career to May that you're going to trust he's able to even pick that up?
No, I don't think so. And that's the whole thing this is the question that I have with this. Because again, with wide receivers, you know, Edelman would talk about, you come to the line, there's you know, a call within a call. I have to see. It even came down to what's the leverage on the guy that's across from me. Is it an inside technique, an outside technique? If so, there's 3 routes off that. There's 2 routes off this. There's my read with this. It takes a look from. I mean, you know, we're talking about complicated crap here, and to say nothing about the blocking schemes and the protections. Nobody talks about that. You just talk about, you know, what's it going to be like in the passing game. Well, what about the running game? You know, conceptually, again, the blocking systems and schemes are complicated. The way the tight end fits into it, the way the running back fits into it, Mark, especially.
Does this mean return of the fullback, Chris?
I think maybe. And I think Vrabel's okay with that too, because you heard him talking about that in his initial press conference about fullbacks and all of this.
And you know what's funny, Chris? Shanahan's offense is a West Coast offense, but Shanahan uses the fullback.
Yeah. So, again, we'll see what it is. We know McDaniels has talked, and in the next segment, we're going to hear from Josh McDaniels about buckets, about giving guys too much. What can we give them? And we'll hear about that. But I want to ask you about, before we get to Williams, I want to break this down seriously about the kind of player, and I'm not talking about the offensive line right now. I mean, I'm talking about the skill positions. Okay, we know what our receiver room looks like right now, and here's what's on the board for free agents or trades. Okay, free agent wise, you got Cooper Kupp, you got Diggs, you got Devontae Adams, you got Godwin, okay, and Higgins. Okay. Via trade, you could have Hill, A.J. Brown, probably DK Metcalf. All right. What's your top 3, or what do you think about these players?
So did you mention Cooper Kupp?
Yeah, he's a free.
But he's not a free agent. He would be a
trade
cap casualty.
Okay.
Because he's so much against the cap, they don't think there's any way they can keep him on that roster.
Right. And so. And by the way, Philly's going to have,
which essentially makes him a free agent, right, Chris?
Yeah, Philly may have that same problem too, because you're paying Devontae Smith. You gave him an extension. Barkley, you got this.
You're going to have to get Barkley a raise.
You have to. Did Hurts already sign? So
I believe he did sign. And
So-
Chris, but what about all those young defenders from Georgia? You're gonna have to
Exactly.
sign those guys.
Yep. And so
Jalen Carter and Dean and all those guys.
yeah. So that may be a situation where, because I think AJ Brown wants out of there. I do.
Yeah. Well, he's
He
reading.
knows
As
it.
you mentioned yesterday, he's reading books.
If they don't win the Super Bowl,
He's gone.
I think he's gone.
But
Because
you
then
guys-
I don't think they're gonna win the Super Bowl.
You guys answered this question yesterday as to who you wanted in here. And was that, let me ask you this, was that based off of any part of Drake May?
Yeah.
We can get into the next segment.
Drake
or
May
based
/
on-
Josh McDaniels. So to answer your question, Chris,
Okay.
you said who do I want? I want
Go,
AJ
go.
Brown.
And this
I
is
want-
based on the quarterback, and it's based on the OC.
quarterback
Because you
and
can't
the
just say,
OC.
I want these guys.
No,
You
no,
gotta
no.
know what you're
I want
doing.
AJ. I want AJ Brown because I think he could
Joe's right. Yeah.
take it with a grain of salt. I think McDaniel's gonna have him do stuff that Randy Moss did. Grain of salt. He's not Randy Moss, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course.
Cooper Kupp. I think in McDaniel's, if he takes pieces of that system, Kupp would be fantastic.
Devontae Adams? What do you
No,
think
I
he'd
don't
be
want
like
him.
with
I don't want him.
Would he even want to play for
He
McDaniels?
wouldn't want to come back here after what happened. They fought with each other in Vegas. Tyreek Hill, I know you like, Chris. I just don't know if Vrabel would deal with him. So T. Higgins, I'd love here. I think he's going to re-sign with Cincinnati. So I would say Brown, trade for him, Kupp, and I think you could trade for. I think you can get DK Metcalf out of Seattle. Because this is the last year of his contract, Chris. They're not going to sign him. They're going to get something for him because they're going to have to spend money on Jackson Smith-Njigba. You can't pay both wide receivers. They're not the type of organization to do that. And that coach Seattle's got now, Chris, run the ball, possession passing, which is Smith-Njigba, and defense. Not DK Metcalf don't fit into his ideas. I don't think.
Well, that's the same thing. That's the same thing that's going on in Philadelphia. And that's why I think you could pry A.J. Brown out of there, and the relationship is there. I mean, Vrabel went so far as to say, I love him. So I love the guy.
That was a shot over the bow. Yeah. Hey, come here.
Yeah, so I think Higgins is off the board. I like Tyreek Hill because of what McDaniels can do with him. Okay? I mean, he'll be playing with an – now, the guy in Miami's a good offensive guy. I'm not saying that. But I think McDaniels is better. I do. And I think that McDaniels will do a lot with Hill. I like that. Cooper Kupp, same thing. Diggs, I think, is cooked. I don't want anything to do with Diggs.
No, I don't want to do with it.
I think you'll be dealing with less nonsense from Hill than you will with Metcalf, So, I mean, yeah, I like Kupp. I like Hill. I like A.J. Brown. Obviously Higgins, but I don't think he's going to be there. And I'm with you on the
Metcalf, Chris, if you don't get A.J. Brown. I don't think you put both of them on this team.
No.
I think it's one or the other because they kind of play a similar position.
But I will tell you that I think he's going to do a lot. I think Pop Douglas's game is going to pop through I think it's going to go through the roof with McDaniels. I really do. The way he's going to use him and protect him.
Okay.
But you're going to need an outside guy to protect him. So, so that's what I think about that. And they also got their defensive coordinator right now talking about Williams. They bring him in, defensive line coach for Detroit, but he was with Vrabel in Tennessee as the assistant head coach. What do you expect to see? It's another D-line guy. We talked about on the CORSO and CATONE. I typically don't like to see those guys as DCs because they don't deal with the back end. So you like to see the back coming forward that way. But what do you expect to see from him?
Well, I think he'll work well with Vrabel because he's Vrabel's handpicked guy. He actually was elevated to assistant head coach when he was in Tennessee with him. So he's a smart guy. He's been around a long time, has a lot of experience, Chris. I think guys like Keon White will play well with him because he kept talking about he likes guys that play violent and fast. And that's Keon White, right? He's violent, he's fast.
Yeah.
And the one thing, Chris, I think it bringing him in is bad news for guys like Tavai and Bentley because the scheme that I think him and Vrabel are going to play is they're going to expect those guys to play in space.
And cover.
And cover. That's what I mean. And cover. Our guys can't do that, Chris.
Because they're going to want to get pressure on the corners. The last thing I'll say is you're going to see a lot of even fronts. You're not going to see 3-man fronts. You're going to see 4-man fronts. And it's not going to be as gap disciplined as you're used to seeing, meaning there's a scheme and a system where, a defensive lineman is gap specific They maintain that. It's a disciplined system. Whereas what you see out of this guy, Williams, and what you saw in Tennessee and Detroit, is a lot more leeway in your pass rush lanes. Okay, it's not as gap specific, and it's not as disciplined, which creates a lot more different looks for the quarterback to deal with. So with that kind of pressure package, you better have a good middle of the field, to Mark's point. So we'll see what happens, and we'll be covering this months. So stick around. We'll be talking about free agents and the combine and everything else coming up. But Coach's Corner.
And listen, you're talking about combine and free agents. Joe, we talked about receivers. I need you to go back and to listen to our wide receiver analysis last year from the draft, just to show people, Chris, that we're not full of crap when we talk about which receivers we want, because we talk about a couple of guys that turn out to be superstars this year. Joe, go back and pull the tape on McConkey and Smith, Brian Thomas Jr. I want to hear that next week.
Well, tune in for next week, ladies and gentlemen, for that.
Very good. So Coach's Corner is presented by CORSO Law Group, CORSOLawGroup.com. Hey, when we come back, going to go into the quarterback room. QB breakdown is next. No flipping.
No one ever thinks they will be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. CORSO Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Call or go online to CORSOLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys.
Back in with more Pats Nation. Okay, so let's talk about now how Drake May fits into all of this. So we're going to do it in QB breakdown, Joe.
Okay, now.
Hit it, boys.
Hit it, boys. Okay, so we talked a little bit about, we talked a little bit about the other players. What's McDaniels going to be like? But the big thing is Drake May.
Of course it is.
How's this going to be with Drake May, Mark?
Well, I think he's going to teach him, Chris, situational football, which I know people give Van Pelt, Chris, a lot of credit for helping him develop during the course of the year, and maybe he did, Chris. But part of our complaint with him was, but he keeps throwing picks, and that was starting to frustrate you at the end of the year. Yeah. And that's situational football, Chris. And I think McDaniels is going to sit with him and say, okay, it's third quarter. Here's what they're throwing at us. Here's the score. What are you doing? I think there'll be a lot more of that analysis and studying going on, in my opinion, which I think is the next thing that May has to figure out, because I don't think Van Pelt ever got that far with him.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's going to be about what are we putting on his plate? We talked about how complicated his system is, or can be.
Yeah.
Well, is he going to make it that complicated? And it's interesting because he appeared on Julian Edelman's podcast months ago, either before the season or just when the season began, talking about Drake May, and this is what he said.
Being a quarterback, what's that process like? Now, who also makes that decision? Is it the head coach? Is it the offensive coordinator? Is it the quarterback coach, or is it everyone's doing it their own? What's this process?
I think you have to have a plan, and that obviously starts from the head coach, his perspective, and you have to, be able to agree on how you're going to kind of unveil that thing to the player. And I at the end of the day, I think you got to take the player where he's at, when he comes in, whether that was Castle or Garoppolo or Stidham or Brissett or Mack, Aiden O'Connell. Like, you got to take the player where he's at. They're all figure out, all right, what do they know? And what am I going to try to, push forward to get him to progress the quickest? Yeah. I think I can get this and this done in OTAs. Okay, great. Cadence, play calls, footwork. All right, good. Really good feel for where's the player at. Yeah. Can't just keep throwing stuff at him. I always talk about it. They have a bucket. You guys all had a bucket, and yours was a big bucket at the end. Like, you could handle whatever we gave you. Well, when you take a young quarterback, it's more like a cup.
At the end, did you notice how he said to Edelman, you had a big bucket at the end? To me, that's probably the most important comment he made.
And nobody had
out
a
of that
bigger
whole
bucket
thing.
than Brady, Chris. So he's not going to throw at him.
Yeah,
No,
he
but
had a
no, but
friggin-
my point
He had a
is he's
dump
not going to.
truck.
No. But my point is he's not going to throw at this kid what Brady was able to consume.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
Well, that's why I
continue.
said that comment to me was the most important comment out of that entire thing, which was at the end, which tells you that it's going to not be so large at the beginning. It's going to be a cup, like he said. What were you saying, Joe?
I think he can. I think Drake may, and I never said this, but ever since he got on the team and progressed this past season, I don't really like to speak. We talk about Mercury in retrograde because I have a background looking at
What
things.
is he talking about?
Listen to this. The fact that he's a Virgo, right?
Oh my God!
Listen.
Shut him off! Hit the button!
Listen.
Shut him
I
off!
knew you guys are gonna bust my chops. But the fact that he's a Virgo, right? He's a perfectionist. And you saw it all last season. I didn't say it at any of those games, but he got better and better, and you saw him make himself better because that's what he does. And I think McDaniel's walking into this, having his claws in him at the beginning of the season, before everything starts, you're going to see a different guy come game one. I guarantee it. Guarantee. Mark my words, Mark.
He's a Virgo.
He's a Virgo. That plays a big part.
You had to know we were going to torture you over that.
I know. But the thing is like they're perfectionists. So you know that kid has that background and he has to make himself better.
Joe's quoting astrology now.
So, Mark, there's no way you're a Virgo then.
No way at all.
Are you crazy, Virgo? Are you crazy?
Well, okay, so he's going to bring him along. What I like about that it was so long ago. I mean, this is before he thought he would be with this team, or who knew that Mayo was going to get fired at that time, or so. He's saying all this is his philosophy is what he would do with the young quarterback. That's good to hear because that lends itself to your point in going against the grain where everybody's saying this was Kraft's pick, not Vrabel's pick, because when Vrabel was introduced, you heard similar speak out of him about tailor the offense to your best player. Hey, we had Henry. That's why we ran the ball so much. That was our best player. Well, now May's the best player. And to bring them along, baby steps, not give them, don't ask them to do things they can't do. Well, you're basically hearing McDaniel say that 4 months ago.
Yeah, and I think if McDaniels went into the OC interview, Chris, telling him basically what he's sitting there telling Edelman, yeah, you're right. I think that fits Vrabel's philosophy 100% on what he wants to do with May and this team. So, I think he probably went in there basically almost speaking Vrabel's language. You're right.
Yeah, because again, yes. I mean, you can't, and I have this idea, and this was Belichick too. You don't ask players, you can't fit a square peg into a round hole. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. Positively.
So
Listen,
even
it's going to be interesting, Chris.
Can't do that.
It's going to be interesting. Huh? No.
So,
look at you.
But go ahead. What were you saying?
No, it's going to be interesting to see how much and how big the cup is that he gives him at the beginning, because he talked about footwork, right? He talked about play calling. Well, I think the footwork kind of got fixed somewhat. Every so often, you saw him revert back to the old Drake May. But I do think whatever work was done with this kid, you had mentioned his footwork pre-draft. It definitely got better, Chris, as the year went on.
Yeah. And the thing it did. And okay, I mean, I always told you that too, about Van Pelt and the credit. And I don't know how much
somebody had to. I know, but you think the kid couldn't have just figured it out on his own.
No,
right?
I'm not saying Van Pelt did nothing for him, but okay, all right. So I'll give him credit for those kinds of things. But to your point, what's next? What I love about McDaniels and why it's a pretty good hire is because we've already talked about this. We beat this to death as to why not a Rams guy and a Detroit guy and all that. And the play calling, as you said, the play calling is a huge thing because Josh McDaniels is a great play caller. He's a guy that understands the game. He understands the flow of the game. He understands the situations that you're in. And that's the thing that May now needs. To your point, Well, who's going to teach him to stop throwing picks in key situations? This guy.
Yeah.
Because this guy's going to get him into practice, okay? And he's going to say, you said this yesterday. You brought this up on CORSO and CATONE, the Real Deal New England Field, Saturdays noon. Okay, Drake, 3rd down, 6, 3rd and 6, ball's on the 30-yard line, 6 minutes to go in the first quarter. Play clock is down to 4 seconds. What do we, here's the situation, here's the front, here's the coverage. What are we doing? What are you doing what are you looking for in the situation? That's the kind of stuff Alex Van Pelt. No way.
No. And that's the kind of stuff, Chris, if you go back to the old footage of when Brady and Belichick used to sit together and go through film, and Belichick would say to him, "What do you think?" And Brady would say, "Well, you know what, Bill, I would maybe try this." Like they would have those conversations in Brady's early years. And I think Josh is going to do the same thing with May.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the next step. So people are like, well, look, he's going to learn a whole new offense, terminology, all that. And it's complicated. We talked about that in the last segment. It's complicated. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Does it have to be?
No, I think he can simplify it for the kid. Listen, and he brought up Matt Castle, Chris, in that clip with Edelman. And I think that's a good example of that kid didn't play, Chris. He wasn't a starting quarterback at USC. The last time he started an NFL football game was in high school. All of a sudden, Brady goes down. He's your starting quarterback. And he brought him to and listen, I know we had incredible weapons on that team in 07. I mean in 08. I know he did. I get that. But he still brought the kid, Chris, to almost Pro Bowl status. And then he goes to the Rams. I'm sorry, the Chiefs the next year, and he becomes a Pro Bowler. So the work McDaniels did with a guy like Castle, and I know we had weapons, but still, you can't take a kid who hasn't played since high school, hasn't started the game, and just because he's got weapons, make him be successful.
He did pretty good with Garoppolo. He did good with Mac Jones in that one year that he made the Pro. I'm using air
whatever,
quotes,
yeah,
Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
And honestly, even though that was the worst offensive year that he had as an OC with that Cam Newton year, 2020.
Yeah, the COVID year, yep.
It still was a pretty damn good job. I mean, that quarterback was cooked. He was done.
He was cooked. He was absolutely cooked. Yep.
So again, situational football is key. It's always been key with quarterbacks. I don't have a problem with him learning new terminology. We said this already. Why Mayo had to go. Why Van Pelt had to go. Because you don't want to wait. We'd rather have an experienced OC in here that's going to bring the proper thing to the table. Okay, so you blew the first year. Well, let's not blow the second year.
Yeah.
So by year 3,
Yeah. Yeah. And I listen, I think by bringing McDaniels in, Chris, you're not going to blow. I think this assures you we're not going to blow the second year. At the very least, we brought in a guy who knows how to develop a quarterback.
Right. So
you know what I mean?
So we like it. I mean, I think he'll work well with Drake May. I think Drake May is a lot more intelligent football-wise than people are giving him credit for.
And Chris, later in that clip with Edelman, if you go and listen to the rest of that podcast, he has he has him on. He also talks about May's running ability and says it's interesting.
Something he's never had before.
Yes, and he says it's interesting that he can run the football. He said, is he going to be are they going to make him into a little bit of a running quarterback similar to what Josh Allen? He said Josh Allen's is bigger. He said, however, he has a lot of those attributes. He said, so I'm interested to see if they can incorporate that into what they do with him, which that's basically telling me, well, McDaniels is telling you if I had him, I'd use that skill set.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? He's basically telling Edelman that.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Let's see how this thing progresses. I'm excited. You excited?
I'm always excited.
We're all excited. QB Breakdown was presented
Joe's talking about astrology.
Hey, it makes me excited though. Anyways.
All right, shut up. Let's get to who's paying the bills. CORSO and CATONE. QB Breakdown was presented by CORSO and CATONE. The Real Deal New England Field Saturdays, noon Eastern. Make sure you're tuning in to Celtics, Bruins, Catone's comments. My God, he beat me up yesterday in Catone's comments. So make sure you're sticking around. But when we come back, going to hear from one of you in the Nation and Heated Hotline. No flipping. The real deal New England feel. What does that mean? We're like you. We're going to bitch about everything.
My opinion, our draft, the good, the bad, it was ugly.
These people, Mark, drive me freaking insane. Bananas.
It's so frustrating and aggravating. I can't take it.
The real deal New England feel. It's going to be real. Jesus Christ, Mark. We looked so much better a few years ago, didn't we?
Oh, shut up. I don't even pay attention.
Back in with more Pats Nation. All right, let's hear from one of you in Heated Hotline. Joe?
Hi, guys. This is Jen from Cranston. So everyone keeps talking about how Mahomes is as good as Brady and the Chiefs are the new Patriots. I'm so sick of hearing about the Chiefs. Mahomes gets every damn call. The NFL should just be ashamed of themselves. I think it's a fraud. Oh, and get Taylor Swift off the damn screen. This is football. Stick to singing. Screw the Chiefs.
That's right. Screw the Chiefs, Jen.
Jenny Cranston, whenever she calls Chris, she tells us exactly how she feels.
We heard her. Joe played it again. We had it yesterday on the CORSO and CATONE. So that's tune into that one because we talked a lot about her points there. And quickly, because I want to talk about some of these games we saw last week. But real quick to Jen's points, no, he's not Brady. Listen to CORSO and CATONE yesterday, and you'll hear why. He's not Brady. He's never going to be Brady. I don't even want to hear about it. He can't do the same things football mind-wise that Brady
Chris,
was doing, period. End of story.
If he three-peats, he did something Brady never did.
Okay, so he did something Brady didn't do, but, yeah, right. Brady had 2 chances at it, and they didn't do it, But Brady threw for 500 yards in that Philly Super Bowl. It would have been a three-peat,
Yeah.
Look, he's just not going to be nobody's going to be as good of a quarterback as Brady was. Forget it. I don't even think as far as quarterbacking, I think Manning's better too. So that's my opinion. Right. And you're right. Screw the Chiefs. Screw Taylor Swift. Get off the goddamn screen, Taylor Swift. They make a lot of money because of her, though. I tell you that.
She wasn't on that much last week, though. They only showed a couple of clips of her.
Ugh. Do you know why we don't like? It's not that we don't like Taylor Swift. It's if they're showing her, that means the Chiefs are doing something good.
They're doing good. Oh, that means the boyfriend is doing something good because I know you love Kelsey.
Oh, he's a slug now. He's done. I can't understand. I don't understand how teams are allowing this guy to be open. Which brings me to the games. Okay, Kansas City wins 23-14 over Houston. Mark. Well, talk about the calls that he's getting.
So listen,
because he's getting the calls, but he's talking about the calls he's getting from the officials in this game. But pissing you off, and I know it pissed you off, the fact that now he's flopping and trying to get the call.
Yeah, I mean, okay, listen, the call where the 2 guys converge on him and they hit their own helmets, they're above his helmet. The back judge throws that flag when the guy on the side of the play doesn't throw it. That's what pissed me off about that, Chris. The guy behind the play is throwing the flag. The guy that the play's right in front of him doesn't throw the flag. Yeah. So that kind of pissed me off. But I could see, okay, maybe from that angle you didn't see it clearly. You thought it was head-to-head contact. Okay, but the flop, Chris, when he goes to the sidelines,
I'm like doing all that,
and the guy pushes him, and he kind of like. It's like it was like he got hit by a freight train and he's falling over. Come on, stop the acting. Really? Yeah. Stop.
You're better than that. You should be better than that.
Yes.
And then
go back and look at the clip when Brady's scrambling against Buffalo and he gets clocked and the helmet flies off and he picks himself up and he starts clapping. He shouldn't have gotten off the turf. Mahomes would have went out on a stretcher and came back out after halftime.
Right.
And
they would have thrown a flag too.
Yep. Oh, I'm playing. Yeah.
Right.
You're right. Quit the acting and quit the antics. Play football. If somebody hits you to the head, they'll throw the flag for you. But play the game the right way. You know
And
what I
this
mean?
is not coming just from unreasonable Patriots fans, even though we are.
Troy
it-
Aikman was
it-
disgusted.
Troy Aikman was. You had Shannon Chapto. You had Stephen Smith. Everybody's up in arms about how this whole situation with the sideline runs with these quarterbacks. It was atrocious. Mark, let me ask you a question. 336 yards of total offense, Houston, to 212 for Kansas City. Okay. 187 or 162. That was fairly even. Rushing 150 yards to 50. Okay. Turnovers, no turnovers. Possession, 33 minutes to 26 minutes. Mark. But here's a big one. 8 penalties for 82 yards for Houston. 4 penalties for 29 yards for Kansas City. When you're talking about why it happened this way, Jesus, it's really hard to go down that list and come up with anything other than the penalties, isn't it?
Yeah. And Chris, two things that stand out when you talk about the penalties is the Chiefs are clearly offsides on the field goal attempt that they missed, right? That should have
easily.
He's clearly offsides.
Which is 5 yards better than maybe you hit that thing.
Or, yeah, clearly offsides. Or maybe you end up going for it on 4th down if they push you forward 5 yards. I don't know.
Could be.
And then the other play, Chris, that I think Mahomes throws the ball to Kelsey. Like that, it might have been he got a big gainer. I'm not sure which play it was, which catch it was. The defender for Houston is basically tackled to the ground. It's a flag that they throw 99% of the time. They throw the flag for holding, Chris. It's like the textbook. If you do this, you're going to be called for holding. Like the refs tell you this in training camp. If you do this, you're getting called for holding. And you see it called almost every week. It happens. Nothing's called. He makes the play. And the guy gets up for Houston. Like, what? There's no flag? They don't throw the flag.
No,
So, those were just two blatant things that I remember. And I'm like, are you kidding me? They're not throwing the flags?
To say nothing about the left tackle false starting all the time.
Well, that's
they're
different.
just not
That's a whole
catching
other
that.
issue. Yeah.
For Kansas City.
How do you not catch that?
But
though,
it
Chris?
always seems to happen. And when in the next segment we go to Sunday Spread, we'll break down the Kansas City Buffalo game. But it always seems to happen, Mark, that teams wet down their leg when that's the only comparison I'll make to the Patriots is that's what teams did with New England. This is what's happening with Kansas City. I don't understand how Kelsey is getting open in the center of the field, why people are not coming down to his top shoulder. I don't follow that.
He's had 14 straight playoff games with more than 70 yards receiving. 14 straight. So when you talk about that, it's 14 straight games. How do you stop what he's doing? Well, tell us, first of all, from a defensive perspective, what is he doing, Kelsey? How is he getting open like that? And how would you stop it?
He's drifting into a hole in the zone. So as Mahomes rolls one way, Kelsey drifts the opposite way and sits about 5-8 yards into that low hole zone, okay?
But nobody sees him there?
Into that hook flat zone. No, I mean, because what Belichick used to do, okay, was he would play zero front, that call it a double mug now, okay? He would bring somebody off Kelsey's side, and he would take guy on the other side of the line and angle him right into that spot. So Kelsey couldn't sit down. So if you did lose contain and Mahomes did get out of the pocket, he was not going to be able to throw back across to Kelsey in that hole. He wasn't able to do it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it.
And Chris, that happened numerous times against Houston on Saturday that he hit Mahomes like that. And then you said, Chris, to me during the game, you said, Mark, Reed is masterful at having Kelsey use other guys to get him open.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah. He
like
rubs
he's
for
using,
him. I mean, he picks
right?
for him. Oh, yeah.
Like they're doing stuff to get him open, the other receivers, so he can sit in an open space.
Yeah, when defensive backs and linebackers are losing sight of wideouts too much lately. You know, they're fixating on the quarterback and the movement of the quarterback. And in zone, yeah, you do that. You try to go to the spot. But these guys are too fast, too good, and the routes are too good to do that. You've got to find the guy and then get your head back over. So that's that game.
But
And
Chris,
just really
the
quick,
other
'cause I
thing
know-
is in that
Yeah.
game though, Chris. But I know we got to go. But what the hell happened to C.J. Stroud? His pocket awareness was atrocious.
Yeah.
Atrocious.
A lot of checkdowns he missed. A lot of checkdowns.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And in the Buffalo-Baltimore game, everybody's look, simply put, Lamar Jackson's just not going to get over the top.
You don't think he eventually gets there? I mean, listen, Andrews should have made the catch for him. He takes him on a 95-yard drive. Andrews is going to make that catch.
Well, so that's overtime. Okay.
Okay, that's overtime. Yeah.
Does that mean you win?
Yeah, I don't know. No.
So do you think that they kept that tight with Buffalo because of Lamar Jackson?
No, I think you talk about wetting your leg. I think McDermott, they got a lead, started to wet down his leg and got too conservative and didn't do what he should have been doing with Allen, because Buffalo, once they got up on them, Chris, instead of he kind of got conservative, was running the ball. They didn't want to take any chances.
Yeah.
If he unleashed Allen at that point, they might have scored 35, 40 points. That would have been a blowout.
I agree. And the other two games that happened, and we're going to get the break. Bottom line, the most disappointing thing that ever happened, that happened all season long, was the Detroit Lions in this game. It was, and Mark mentioned
it was really unfortunate, Chris, because I honestly thought that they were the one team that Kansas City would never be able to keep up with offensively, because Kansas City hasn't scored more than 30 points all year, Chris. So you and I both thought Detroit was going to get to the Super Bowl and score enough points where it wouldn't be competitive. They wouldn't be able to keep up. That was very disappointing against the Commanders.
It was disappointing because from a coaching standpoint, this team was not ready. They were not prepared on defense in this game. And I think you're right when you said Ben Johnson pissed down his leg when Goff became Goff.
Chris, very interesting now point about that is Belichick, after the fact, says that it's unfair to teams that you allow these coordinators who are still involved in the playoffs to interview for coaching jobs. You should not be able to talk to those guys until the playoffs are over and they're knocked out if you really want it, if you really want them. He said, because no matter what they say, it distracts from game planning for the game you're going into. And he was referencing, I think, Johnson. He said, no matter how much they say it doesn't, he said it absolutely affects the amount of time you're putting into the game plan by preparing for a head coaching interview.
Yep, I agree. Absolutely.
So Belichick said that rule's going to be changed.
Yeah.
You should not be able to contact those guys until after it's over.
So, and then the last game, obviously, Philly Rams. If the weather was better, the Rams win that game.
Yeah, we both agree, Chris. If it didn't snow, I think the Rams would have beat them.
Right. So thank you, Jen, for the call. Heated Hotline was presented by CORSO Law Group, CORSOLawGroup.com. We come back, going to try to make you some money. We're going to break down these two championship games, so stick around.
No one ever thinks they will be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. CORSO Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Call or go online to CORSOLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys.
Back in with more Pats Nation. Okay, Mark. So let's get into Sunday's.
The way for you to say it, or it's going to be played. That's
okay. All right, Mark. Listen. Let's before we get into these two games. Now, don't drone on, but talk about the Notre Dame Ohio State game.
So what our fear was, Chris, happened. We thought the Notre Dame coach with the head coach. We thought eventually his coaching would catch up to them, and we both thought in that game. Yes, Ohio State's had more talent than they do. We got it, but you mentioned, how they were, sealing the edge on defense, a gap control, the play of the corners. You said it would. They just wet themselves, and I agree with you. Notre Dame made it a game, but we thought that it should have been Notre Dame could have won that game with different preparation.
Yeah, I don't know how on earth the edges weren't getting set. And I don't understand what the DC was trying to get done, because I don't think that everybody's high up on this Ohio State quarterback. I'm not. I don't think he's a good college quarterback. I don't think he's going to be much in the pros. But to allow him out of the pocket the way they did and to not set edge on jet sweeps and things like that, when you had clear breakdowns on the defensive front, clear breakdowns of slanting one way and nobody looping to pick up the edge. And it happened so many times. And you could see by the way, Ben Morrison is now committed to the NFL. He's going to come out in the NFL draft. Good for congratulations. Good for him. I coached him.
He would have made a difference in that game, Chris.
Yeah, I coached him in high school. And I'm proud of the kid. I'm happy for the kid. And he would have made a huge difference in that game because he would have locked Smith down. What went on with Smith, I don't even understand, especially on that last play where the corner's already set 7-8 yards off the ball mark. And I'm telling you not to drone on, and I am now. He drifted to the inside.
I'm glad you said it, not me.
And you just allowed him to run out of the field. So,
and they made this guy the Cincinnati Bengals DC Golden. So, we'll see.
Okay. So, getting to the NFL now. Okay, the championship games. You got Washington at Philly in the first one of the day today, and it's going to be Philly 6.5. Over on the 47.5. Mark, break this down a little bit for us, this game.
Well,
what do you think?
listen,
Washington, huh?
Washington, though, Chris, can they stop the run? I don't know. They're going to have to stop Barkley. No one's been able to stop him all year. And I know this is the third time they played each other. Third time, right? However, Washington had the lead, Chris, when Hurts goes out of that game. And then they blew it with the backup. And Barkley had a big game. So I know everybody's in love right now with Jaden Daniels. I know they are. They're all in love with him. I get it. I just think Philly's defense, Chris, they're all over the field, even without Nakobe Dean in the middle. Their defensive front is really strong. They got a good back secondary. I don't know, Chris, if the Washington defense is going to be able to stop Barkley, but I do think that, listen, I'm going to make this prediction. You said they're not using him. A.J. Brown is going to have a big game Sunday because they're going to play fake off of Barkley, and A.J. Brown's going to have a big game. A.J. Brown's going to get 8-9 catches. You watch on Sunday. I think Jaden Daniels runs out, Chris. It runs out. I like Philly in this game. And I believe it or not, as crazy as it's going to sound, I think Philly's going to cover the spread too.
So, talking about Washington's defense, you mentioned this briefly. Philadelphia rushed for 285. Was it? Am I seeing that right? Total yards 350. Yeah, they rushed for 285 yards last week. They only threw for 65, which is why.
And it snowed. But it snowed, Chris. So
okay, all right, I got you. Yeah, it was a different type of game. But I look at the Commanders game, okay, and they allowed. I mean, Detroit. How the hell Detroit loses? Look, and I'm trying to pull up the stats here for that, but Detroit had 520. How do you lose with 520 yards total offense? Of course, Washington got 481 yards. But just looking at Washington's defense, okay, Detroit rushed for 201 yards in this game. Now, that's Detroit. Now, Detroit's got a good running game.
They got a good running game.
Fine. But Barkley's the best back in football. I don't care what everyone says about Derrick Henry. Barkley's the best back in football.
This year he is, yeah, absolutely. Positively.
So this is a problem for Washington. This will be the game for them.
Yeah.
Because I think Jalen Hurts, I
think he's banged up, Chris, too, Hurts.
But I still like Washington in this game.
Oh!
Because I think I think the Kobe Dean out is going to hurt Philly's defense. And I think Jaden Daniels, nobody's told him he's not supposed to win. Yeah. So I do think that, and it's with the spread. If it's 6.5 points today, yeah. If you're getting 6.5 out there, I wish it was 7.5, or 7. But I'll take Washington, that point spread. I'll take it.
Okay.
And I might throw something on them on the money line as well. Now, let's get to the AFC. championship game. Okay.
Listen,
Buffalo
Jaden
at
Daniels- go
Kansas
ahead.
City. Go ahead.
Go
What?
ahead. No, go ahead. When I talk about the bet, I'll go ahead. I'll tell you.
Well, Brandon, we'll talk
No.
about Philly.
Finish. Let's talk about the AFC first.
All right. Buffalo at Kansas City. Okay. The line is Kansas City's favored by 2. Over-under is 47.5. Same over-under. Can Josh Allen and company get over the hump?
Yes. But I think Josh Allen, listen, the one thing Allen's done this year, Chris, is he has drastically cut down on the turnovers. He's playing smart football. I don't want to say ball control because it's not ball control, but there's been a real emphasis on don't beat ourselves. Don't turn the ball over. And they even said that in the locker room after the Baltimore game. We won because we didn't turn the ball over. No mistakes, few mistakes. Like they've been banging that into Allen and this team every single week, Chris. And so I don't think you're going to see Allen go throw that big pick in a crucial situation. I think he's learned. I think he's taking less chances than he did in the past. If Buffalo can score over 30 points, Chris, there's no way Kansas City can win the game. Kansas City hasn't scored more than 30 points all year. All of a sudden in week 19 or 20, you're not going to score over 30 points, Chris. You are who you like Bill Parcells used to say, you are who you are. And the Chiefs are who they are. They're a team that's been winning with defense. What you said earlier about Mahomes, right? Mahomes isn't the reason they're winning this year. It's the defense. I think Buffalo beats them, Chris. I think Buffalo. I would take Buffalo with the points. I think Buffalo beats them in probably between 4 and 7 points. I think it's a Buffalo win. I think it's going to be like 34-23, 37-27. It's Buffalo's going to get into the 30s in this game.
Yeah, I like them too. I like the money line on this one.
Please
Look, you
pick
can't
the Chiefs. Please pick the Chiefs.
shut up. You can't get past the yards. Look, Kansas City had 212 yards last week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's it. 221. They were 4 of 11 on third down. 4 of 11.
That ain't going to cut it this week.
No, and I think Buffalo's got a better defense than Houston. I do. I think Buffalo shows up more than so. Just that alone, I just don't think they're going to have enough offense, like you say, for Buffalo. And let's go to the other side. Houston had 336 yards total offense. Mark, they were 10 of 17 on third down, and that's with C.J. Stroud missing a lot of checkdowns in that game.
And that's what the special teams stinking to join out with missing all kind of extra points, field goals.
And by the way, they rushed for 150 yards. So when you look at what Buffalo can do, all right, and you look at what they did in that game, and I know weather was, something to do with it, but you're going to deal with that. Look, they only had 273 yards total, but they rushed for 150 yards themselves. And I think that number goes up with Josh Allen in this game. So if Josh Allen doesn't piss down his leg, he should beat this team.
Should.
They got to have an answer. They cannot allow Kelsey to do the things he does on that field.
Chris, 14 straight games, over 70 yards receiving.
So for this game, I'll take Buffalo too. I got similar numbers. I got a 34-24 final. So obviously we like the over.
Listen, I take Buffalo straight. I take Philly straight. Listen, Jaden Daniels, this is the game that he does know he's a rookie. Nobody knows. To everyone, he doesn't know he's not supposed to be there. Well, today he finds out he's a rookie. He's going to throw 2 or 3 picks this week. This is the week that Philly secondary grabs 2 or 3 on him.
They turned the ball over 4 times against Philly, and they still beat him. I know Hurts was out.
I understand that. Hurts was out. Trust me. Philadelphia by double digits.
All right, so you heard it here first. The Pats Nation was presented by CORSO and Catone Saturdays, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. Tune in. We'll have it all, Catone's Comments especially. And come back next weekend, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern. We're going to break down these games that we just picked and see if we were right. So stick around for that and talk about start of free agency and so much more. We are the Pats Nation. Hey, enjoy the games.